Sick of your minis looking like everyone else's? Let's fix that. In this video, I'm going to show you how to start kit bashing and customizing your models even if you've never done it before. No fancy tools, no stress, just cool ideas that you can try out today. Alright, I like to see kit bashing and conversions as two different things. So to me, a conversion is when you take a model and lightly modify it, maybe like a head swap or a shoulder pauldron swap or changing a weapon type, right? To be more towards your army's meta, right? But then a kit bash is more when you take more than one model and shove them together, i.e. kit bash, which is probably my favorite thing to do in the hobby. Between the two, I enjoy both. Almost every model I build has some kind of conversion or some kind of kit bashing going on, even if it's small thing. All right, so let's go into more depth on conversion versus kit bashing. So conversion is really when you are taking a model and adding some pieces to it, or for me as a Grey Knight player, I will take normal Space Marine models that are intended to be some general Space Marines and cut off some iconography and maybe some filing down, swapping out a head, swapping out some shoulder pads, stuff like that. That makes them into a Grey Knight. That's more of a conversion. So the difference between that and kit bashing is more in depth when you are taking more than one model and putting them together, or even taking something from something completely different and putting it onto your model. So with that, more of an example would be for like this model in particular, and I'll put a bigger one up on screen, is that it is a normal Tech Marine body, but I used other pieces from two other kits to finish this model out. This was actually a model from leftover from my other Tech Marine that I've built also. And this is the leftover bits and then a Tech Priest leftover bits to finish him off. He wasn't quite enough to be considered a complete model in my opinion. So I used a little bit of extra bits to complete that model. So that is a kit bash. That's technically 3 models shoved together to make one model. Can it be expensive when you're doing this? Yes. Is it fun to have a unique model? In my opinion, yes. I know it's not for everybody, but it is what it is. So a little bit more on conversions. Also are extremely handy for beginners. If you don't want to go out and buy a whole other something else to get a weapon to put on something else, is the upgrade sprues that Warhammer sells, right? Those upgrade sprues can just swapping ahead from what everybody else is normally seeing as a different model, or giving you options that look more fitting to your army style, or even weapons that might be unique to your army. Those kits are a good way, and technically that is converting your model over to another army. So basic tools that you'll need when it comes to kit bashing and conversions is basically just a really good glue, right? So I always use Tamiya Thin is my go-to glue. When you need something to set a little bit faster and you can't just sit there and hold it, or it's not something that kind of clamping in on default, I will use plastic glue. It's more like super glue, but it still melts the plastic, so you actually get a fusion. I actually very rarely use super glue on my models, but your go-to secret weapon is when you're buying the extra thin cement, is buying 2 bottles. This is what I recommend highly, to buy more than one, and then turning one into a thick. And all you're doing is basically making what is known in the hobby as sprue goo. And sprue goo, and I have a video on how to do that and how it works, and I'll put it right here. And basically you're taking this clear liquid cement, right? And you're adding sprue to it that from your kits, and you're making a plastic putty basically. And like I said, check out the video for more in depth on that. Another tools that are really handy and you should be already having anyway, is a good hobby knife, right? They come in various sizes, so it can get a little weird when you're like drilling barrels and stuff like that. And I have a great barrel drilling video, and I'll plug that right there too. Snippers, you should already be having various different kind of files. And the extremist files is that I have a metal file, which I use very lightly, and it's really to like grind something down. But then either after that, I'm going to use something like this, just I think this is like 225 grit, 200 grit, if I recall correctly. But these like little flexi straws are amazing for like getting in like little tight spots and stuff like that. An absolutely game changer for your hobbying. How to start kit bashing. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, easy conversions are those upgrade sprues. And then when you really start getting into kit bashing, shoving more than one model together, is to dry fit and kind of have a plan of what you want to do. And that could be simply swapping out an arm, swapping out a backpack, right? Changing up the head from an upgrade sprue, but then also adding on something else. Another good example, and I'll put it up on screen now, is this Bannerman for Acadian army that I'm working on right now. And the head and the arm that are wrapped are from their upgrade sprue, but in this group is actually going to be Ursula Creed. And Ursula Creed came with like this like leader mallet thing. So I clipped that off and added it to the top of the flagpole to kind of indicate that she is the one leading this group, really, right? Just small little details that change up your army to show you different things. And sometimes it could just be the most minute detail. I know that most of us are playing on a tabletop, and we're not all gonna take hours and hours of painting each model in our army. But when you're doing something unique, or you're putting some extra love and extra pride into what you're doing, these small details stand out. And when someone is admiring your army, they're like, wow, that's not normal. And it really stands out because they're used to seeing the same troops. And that's the whole point of conversion and kit bashing. So a simple conversion is this Grey Knight Dreadnought that I have. And all I really did was add some extra purity seals, right? And paint him as a Grey Knight. But something that stands out that is very unique, if you look at the shoulders, are the actual heads of the top of a weapon from a weapon that I'm not using, that I only use. It's like comes in like two or three in a box, I think, each kit. And then I'm only using one every time I build this particular squad. And that star cluster with the skull, even though it's facing backwards, from front and from back, it looks rather unique. And just that little pop sometimes can change your model to making it truly what your army represents. Like for this example is turning a normal dreadnought into a Grey Knight. Like, how do you make it more Grey Knighty? How do you make it more Blood Angel-y? How do you make it more whatever your army is that you're trying to do, right? What makes it unique? And adding those little details to models that aren't really supposed to be in your army and making them yours. All right, now what I really want to go over some common beginner mistakes to avoid, and that is not dry fitting, right? So by dry fitting, what I mean is seeing how that shoulder, when you're putting that whole arm onto this model that doesn't go to the model, right? How does that shoulder socket fit, right? Is it going to impede on something else when you get to the next step, right? And kind of doing that. And the easiest way to do that is some like poster putty and kind of just holding it there and seeing how it's going to work. Or it might normally be in this pose right here, but you want it to be in this pose right here. Even that small change from the design, how it's supposed to be out of the box, can impede something else, and you might have to file it away. So dry fitting is very, very important when it comes to conversion and kit bashing. So I want to give you some bonus tips, and those are going to be just try to mix other parts together. Like I said, one big thing is always keep your bits. Keep your bits, keep your bits, keep your bits. Anytime you're building an army, you never know. Like right here, I have one of these for every army that I've built. I got a nice little sticker on there. One side is like pretty much vehicles, and one side is pretty much troops. And it's all my bits for my Grey Knights, right? And sometimes I'm just using the most smallest things, the smallest details. One of the smallest details that I like to do on conversions, and again, I'll bring up another model right here, and that is if you look at the bottom of the weapon, I've added on that tiny, tiny little skull that goes on to most of our weapons. That this weapon, because it is a conversion, this staff is not from, or is not for my army. So adding that little skull to the bottom is just the smallest little details when it comes to kitbashes and conversions that you can do that bring that unit into your army. And the easiest place to start is just swapping heads and swapping weapons. That's the easiest place to start. If you're nervous and you don't want to screw up your model, easiest way, especially with, like I said, with Grey Knights, get a model. I'll show you this librarian that I converted over to a Grey Knight again. And if you just look, all I did really was swap out the weapon, swap out the shoulder pads, and I swapped out the head. Truly, truly, that's all I did. So that's an easy conversion right there for you, right? So another tip I'd like to give you is finding cheap bits. So that could be buying bits from a third party, right? Asking your friends who might be playing a similar army for leftover pieces. One that I actually like to do sometimes also is like, who do you normally, when I'm doing like a commission for somebody, who's your like best friend that you play Warhammer with, that you're commonly playing with, and adding leftover bits from his army onto like your bases, or like a trophy, or like you have a leader like holding a skull in their hand, but it's from your common enemy's army. Stuff like that can be a real fun conversion, right? You're adding something to the model that makes it different. All right, now we want to talk about the dreaded things that can happen, right? Overgrind, right? Using the wrong tool for the job. You've made some drastic mistake, right? So easy fixes. Go back to sprue goo. Sprue goo is a good gap filler, right? It's good for filling in spaces that you messed up, right? Another good one, if you want something a little bit more solid, is green stuff. It's a pretty common thing to use. So with that, for example, using sprue goo, let's say you slipped, you gouged, you cut, you grinded something on an arm or something drastic, right? Is it a bad thing? Is he battle damaged now? Can you just work with it? That's the cheapest route right there. You gouged the shoulder, now it's battle damage. Good job. All right, that's gonna be it for this video today. If you liked this video, please hit that like button. And if this is your first time ever really considering conversion or kit bashing and you got questions, drop them down below. I'll be happy to comment on them. And I would love to see and hear your builds. So feel free to add me on Instagram. I'll put that right here. This is where you can find me on Instagram. And as always, hit that subscribe button for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one. YouTube thinks you'll like this video right here. And if you'd like to subscribe, click this button right here. And as I just said, hit this button right here for my Instagram. And I'll see you in the next one.